Just want to let you know, the following episode will contain adult themes, some naughty language, and liberal use of our own opinions. 3, 2, 1.
That went well, didn't it? I think we recorded that really well. Definitely didn't sound shit.
I think the milk just makes it worse, because you have to clean it off with water.
Right, I immediately edit that out, Jack.
I couldn't sleep that night because I could just hear Pikachu like screaming in my head. So realistic.
But I was close because of my cousin.
So what you're saying is your greatest Pokemon achievement is destroying someone's childhood.
It wasn't milk that ruined his game. It was just another boy.
I can only assume so. There's no such thing as echo chambers, and Reddit is fact.
I think we're definitely going to get done for copyright again, Jack.
That better not be a goose.
People are wrong.
Nerd!
It's not the first gold star I've got.
You just slap them and throw their phone as far as you can. You dare disrespect me?
I'm like adverse to the outside.
He's always crying about pushing his daughter off a cliff.
I'd like to hand in my adult card, please.
And this is what's annoyed Dan this week.
Oh, I've forgotten where we were now. We went off topic so quickly.
Literally use them as toilet paper. Still do, because I had that many of them.
Don't think I was ever one of those kids lucky enough to pull a Charizard.
You spent a little bit more than that on some of them.
You make me Charizard.
Well, it wasn't small, it was quite a big one actually.
We can edit that bit out. Yeah, we can edit that bit out.
Cool sentence, bro.
What were you going to do? Cry about it? Write a letter of discontent?
Shall we take it from the top?
Mm-hmm.
Right. In the 1980s, Satoshi Tajiri, a man who collected bugs as a child, was publishing a video games magazine. His pen name? Game Freak.
Fast forward to 1989, the Nintendo Game Boy was released, and revisiting his childhood hobby, Tajiri conceives a universe that would still be a global phenomenon 31 years later. Together with Ken Sugimori and Junichi Masuda, Game Freak, the video game developer, was born. 7 years later, Pokemon Red and Green hit shelves. 2 years after that, Red and Blue made their way to the shores of Europe.
One of my earliest gaming memories is Pokemon Blue on Game Boy. That was back in 1999. Since then, 122 Pokemon games have been made, 5 generations of which are in the Wikipedia top 50 best-selling video games. Along with the games, 24 animated movies and 21 animated series of Pokemon have been released, making it the highest-grossing media franchise of all time, with an estimated total revenue of 100 billion. For some context, Game of Thrones worth 1 billion, Mario 38 billion, and Star Wars 70 billion.
In this podcast, we'll take a look at Pokemon, what it means to us personally, how many incarnations we've played, the types of games that Game Freak has developed and how they've changed over time, for better or for worse, and how many we've caught, our greatest achievements, and our lifelong path to become a Pokemon master and the greatest of them all.
Yep, to be the very best. Right, that's the end of the scripted bit. Yeah.
That went well, didn't it? I think we recorded that really well.
Yeah, smash it.
Definitely didn't sound shit.
Right. Fair enough. I guess we'd start off with just like talking about our Pokemon credentials and how we've got into it.
Yeah, sure. So first off, I'd like to say how glad I am that you picked Pokemon to be the first content episode, considering that it definitely doesn't make us seem like an absolute pair of weirdos that still play Pokemon at the age of between 25 and 40.
Yeah, for anonymity maintaining measures going on.
Consistency is key. Like you, I played Pokemon from a very young age. I think my first experience was, school playground, as most of everyone. I don't know if I saw the cartoon first or whether someone else said to me, have you watched this cartoon Pokemon? It may even be the cards that I saw first. It's hard to remember. The
animated series came out between the release of Blue and Yellow. So, Blue, Red, Green, they were released to sort of start it off, and then they made the anime. That's why in Yellow you get Pikachu, and then collect all the starters in order and things like that.
So maybe my experience is a little bit different to you then, in that, my first game was actually Yellow. I got a Game Boy Color. A Pikachu one.
God, with, someone's doing well.
Yeah, if only that hadn't been thrown away in the bin, eh? We won't talk about
those £30 these days.
So I that was my first sort of adventure into the world of Pokemon. So you probably had it a bit earlier than me. Was it Blue you said you played?
Yeah, so I got Blue probably 1999. But the harrowing tale, I spilt milk on it when I was asleep once, and I woke up and it was just disgusting.
Is this like young Jack who goes to bed with like a glass of milk next to a little cookie?
Exactly. Puts his Game Boy down next to it and then wakes up in the morning.
Absolute horror.
Horrible scenes. Screams. The parents come running up the stairs. What is it, Jack? There must be blood. There must be a blood wound. No. I'm just shoving the Pokemon Blue with the milk still in trying to get in the cartridge, trying to make it work.
In fairness, though, there are a few horrors as bad as spilling water, or in your case milk, all over something
just
precious.
Makes it worse.
I mean, there's definitely been like
you have to clean it up with water.
Coming back to the old playground antics, there's definitely a few kids at school that just drop their Pokemon cards in a puddle on a rainy day. You can just see the look of terror.
Yeah.
In their eyes as they fall.
Watch people die inside.
Yeah, basically. No, so I think, I mean, what was that now? Like 20 years ago, essentially, even more, 22 years ago. And, it did really become this, I mean, obviously it wasn't overnight, but it did sort of become a phenomenon overnight almost. I just remember it being a thing all of a sudden, and it was the thing for children of our age, wasn't it? I mean, it went from the games, if that was your first entry point, to the show, to the cards. I mean, the movie came out, what was it, 98?
Oh, the
99?
Mewtwo
movie?
Oh,
I mean,
everyone's... the first time you cried at something when Ash is just there, stone, Pikachu way.
Whoa, spoilers, Jack.
Have you watched the remake?
Spoilers. I have. They also took out that cool music that I really like. It definitely wasn't cool, but that music that I liked as a kid, they took it out in the remake.
I couldn't sleep that night because I could just hear Pikachu like screaming in my head. So realistic.
I felt they definitely laid off in the remake on the whole sort of like Pokemon slapping each other thing and all that sort of business. I mean, that was what it amounted to, right? It's just like these things hitting each other, which was quite horrible when you were a kid. You're like, no.
Yeah. Stop it.
No, I did watch the remake. I thought it was all right. Again, it doesn't have the nostalgia of the original, though, does it?
I mean, that might just be because we're old now. You know.
That's very true.
All right. Well, what would you consider like your best Pokemon achievement then?
You've put me on the spot here. I
have. So we're talking like completed Pokedexes, or like earliest level 100, or
I mean, I never did complete the Pokedex as a kid. Did many kids? I'm not sure. Did you?
I mean, I think the closest I ever got when I was a kid was in Ruby. I told you about this. I got everything but Feebas and Milotic. And for those who aren't aware about the trials of Feebas, you could only catch Feebas in 3 randomly generated tiles on a certain river in the game, and there's no way. They're not the same between games. So you just had to go along and fish. And it wasn't also a guarantee catch when you fished in that spot. So you had to like fish 2 or 3 times each tile, move along, and you had to do this over and over. There's no way on earth I was going to like find that out by accident. So I just couldn't find this Pokemon. So I was 2 Pokemon off. Obviously, Feebas evolves into Milotic. And so now, like, as we're playing Sword and Shield, aren't we? Like, Milotic is now like a team for me. Like, it just happens to be a good Pokemon, but it's it's very sort of cathartic for me to get that Pokemon, because that was Gen 3 Pokédex completed otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think I came close on Yellow because I used to play with my cousin who used to come around. I have a funny story about that, actually. I'll tell that in a moment. So he used to come around the house, and we traded some of the exclusives because he had Red, I think it was. So they designed Yellow so that you needed to trade with both Red and Blue. So I don't think I could get a complete Pokédex, but I was close because of my cousin. And then, of course, Gold and Silver came out a couple of years later. But to come back to that story, so thinking about it, actually, this was before I was fully aware of what the games were, and before obviously I had my own game. My cousin came around and he brought his Pokemon Red, I think it was, or Blue with him. I think it was Red. To the house on his Game Boy. And he was doing something else or whatever, so he let me kindly play on his Pokemon game, but didn't really tell me how to play it or anything like that. And I remember going to the PC on the game, which, again, for those of you who haven't played the games, you could store Pokemon in the PC. It was like a storage box for it because you could only carry 6 with you. And my cousin was quite far through the game, so he'd put a lot in there that he'd sort of caught over the time of the game. And I went through, and I obviously thought, being the young king that I am, there's options, right? And one of the options is release. And I obviously thought, well, I want to release it from the PC so I can use it. So I sort of went through releasing various Pokemon and wondering why I wasn't able to use them. And then, saved up when I was finished playing, of course. Only for him to come back to his game. And he absolutely lost it. He went crazy. Because I'd obviously released his childhood away from him.
So what you're saying is your greatest Pokemon achievement is destroying someone's childhood.
I didn't say that was my greatest achievement.
Different direction than I was.
This was just a tangential story about the time that I didn't know release, then remove from the PC into the wild
wounded.
Again.
Have you ever talked to this cousin again?
Did you just say the word wounded, Jack? Did we step back 15 years ago? No, that was quite sad for him, of course. I felt bad about it, but I didn't really understand at the time the sort of attachment that he had to these characters. Yeah. Until, of course, I got my own game, and then I fully understood. But by then, that had been a long time.
By then, he was in prison for murder. His life had descended into a drugs trip.
No, my cousin is still fine. So he made it through that traumatizing event in life. It wasn't milk that ruined his game. It was just another boy. I think, obviously we have great nostalgia, I think, as a generation for these games, don't we? Because, if you ask a lot of people about their treasured childhood franchises, I think Pokemon rates highly for most people in our age bracket. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, what are the competitors? It was like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Beyblades, where I was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to think of anything else that may have sort of caught off over time.
Maybe like the football stickers, but I never really got onto that.
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed playing football and whatnot, you tend to like the football cards, didn't you? What were they called now? Is it like something? Match something? Something like that, I don't remember.
Power Pods?
The Power Pods.
Chocolate, mad.
I think we're definitely going to get done for copyright again, Jack. So even you singing is enough to...
Well, bring a tear to people's eyes because it's so majestic. Yes, I agree.
I loved that song, though. And wasn't there like a football, like a cheer at the end?
Yeah. Power Pods. Power Pods! Yeah, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Absolutely. You've already lost us. Our podcast already before it's begun.
Back then there was there was 151 Pokemon, including Mew, 251 if you included the next gen. How many Pokemon do you think there are now, excluding Mega Evolutions?
I mean, of course, I am, as we'll come on to talk about, I do still play the games. It's one of my remaining elements of Pokemon that I still engage in. So I am, of course, informed on this. But I don't know exactly. I think there's 800 and something, 900 maybe?
Oh, okay. So, cool. Yeah, 898.
Oh, that's pretty good then. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Pretty bang on.
Yeah, actually, this is a good branching off point, isn't it? So one of the sort of controversial aspects of Pokemon over the years has been Pokemon design, hasn't it? Everyone had a favourite of the 151, and those are generally considered good Pokemon, even if they're not people's favourites. Like, you won't find many people that necessarily insult the designs of the original 151. But what we have found is, over the years, that people are not as keen on some of the designs from the later generations, are they?
I mean, the Pokemon that is literally a bag of rubbish and evolves into a bigger bag of rubbish is called Trubbish. I think...
Here's my controversial statement, which I've made to you before in private, and I shall now air this opinion in public. People are wrong. There are just as many poorly designed Pokemon in the original 151 as there are in the other 700 odd. I mean, you talk about Trubbish, right? For a start, that's not a bad pun. Trubbish. I'll go with that. Secondly, Grimer and Muck. I mean, how are they any worse? People may remember Grimer and Muck as literally purple puddles. So
There wasn't global warming back then. We weren't aware of it. Pollution was just a purple goop that floated in the sea, and that's what that was.
I mean, you've got things like Voltorb, again, for people who remember, the Pokemon that literally just looked like a Pokeball with eyes on it.
It's got 2 colours, please, and it's angry. A bit like you. I think you'd be a Voltorb. Occasionally, you'd evolve into an Electrode and just explode, and I think that's very apt.
I do think there are some designs that... I mean, for a start, every generation they've gone with the staple sort of bird trio, like Pidgey and stuff from the originals. They've had one of those. They have like a bug trio, don't they? Like Caterpie and Butterfree and all that.
Well, they had 2 in the first one.
Yeah, exactly. So there are sort of like design philosophies that I think they follow of having these certain elements consistently across generations. And I don't think there's necessarily a problem with that, but naturally that does lend itself to later designs feeling like it's a repetition of earlier ones. But I think, they fulfill a role. I don't think it would be the same if they didn't put in like a staple bug trio at the beginning of the game. It's just part of what they always were, and I like that. So I don't feel it's quite fair to judge some of the later designs on the earlier ones.
Okay, so if we're just assessing effort being put in, right, which generation do you think had the least new iterations? I've got it in front of me, so...
I struggle to remember exactly what came out in what generation, but if I had to pick one, I'm going to go on what I think are the weakest games, which would be Gen 7, like Sun and Moon.
Alright, so the lowest new iterations was 72 in Generation 6, which I guess the Kalos region. Which was that? Was that black and white?
No, that was X and Y. So that was the one that was based around
those.
Paris and France.
Oh. Cool.
To defend X and Y, though, on that front, a part of the motivation behind there being less new designs, as you say, for that generation, or the reasoning, I should say, rather than motivation, is they were the first games to venture onto a new 3D engine on the 3DS.
Right.
As people will fondly remember, Pokemon used to be sort of 2D sprite-based back in the day.
64-bit.
Exactly.
And all the Pokemon were just sort of an arrangement of squares.
I mean, back on the original Red and Blue, there wasn't any colour. They were just base Game Boy games.
Which is ironic, really, isn't it? That, they picked Red and Blue, but they were colourless. And Black and White came out, and they
but everyone knew Charizard was red and Blastoise was blue because everyone was watching the cartoon and collecting the cards.
Well, they weren't, because Red and Blue came out before the cartoons, didn't they? So
I guess, actually, lay your claim down, Jack. Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, where do you stand? Pick one.
Okay, so what I did when I was a kid, I would always get the starter that was the colour of the cartridge, which obviously screwed me over on
such a basic
gold.
Pitch, Jack.
I know. So I got Squirtle first, and then Ergo Blastoise. But do I have any loyalty to them? No, probably not. I think nowadays I'd probably go Venusaur.
I also choose Venusaur nowadays. I was a Charizard chooser as a kid. I mean, he did have probably the coolest design, I think, consensus would say. I mean, Charizard remains a classic to this day, a favourite of people's. He's all over the merchandise, isn't he, along with Pikachu and some of the other sort of common mons, should we say.
But it's not your favourite Pokemon, is he, Dan?
No, it's not my favourite Pokemon. My favourite, of course, is Trubbish. No.
Get out.
I wonder if Trubbish is anyone's favourite. I mean, surely each Pokemon have at least one person who would claim that it's its favourite, right? Sure.
Reddit do a survey, didn't they?
Yeah, but it's Reddit representative of the real world. That is questionable.
I can only assume so. There's no such thing as echo chambers, and Reddit is fact. So on their survey of 52,000 responses, which is pretty extensive, the 5 Pokemon that got 0 are Silcoon, I guess it's like whatever.
That's like a middle bug, right? Like a Metapod of the later generation.
The fact that Metapod got one is pretty impressive, but whatever.
Hey, people like Metapod, actually. There are some Metapod fans out there. I've seen stuff like memes and stuff before.
Because he can harden. Is that it?
I think you took it to a place I wasn't thinking. Don't lie. Maybe there are some sort of kinky mofos out there.
Well, the other 3 are Pokemon I don't really know. Gothita, Electric, and Yungoos. Yungoos? What the hell? That better not be a goose. It's a mongoose.
Okay, so I mean, you've answered that question. There clearly are some, all from the later generation. Yeah. It's interesting then that, the 151 at least, even in that sample, every single original Pokemon was someone's favourite. Yeah. And I do think nostalgia plays a big part in this. And I don't think in general... I do believe that the designs for Pokemon is one of the staple standout elements that has stayed consistently good over the years. I mean, there are lots of game series out there like Pokemon where you can collect characters and battle in various ways. And I think one of the reasons that Pokemon has stood the test of time and stood out in the first place is that its design is top-notch.
Yeah.
I think people want to collect the Pokemon, you know? They like the character designs. They appeal to people.
Yeah.
And so I would argue that the character design, Pokemon design that is, hasn't necessarily got any worse.
No, fair.
Over time.
Well, okay, yeah. So I guess another feature might be that the explosion of Pokemon Go onto the scene will have picked up people that didn't really play the games before. You know, it was massive at the time. Like, there was people getting arrested for like trespassing. There were people getting robbed because they were going up dark alleyways to find like a side. I've got one here. Saudi Arabia had prohibited it because they believed it promotes polytheism and evolution theory. So they just outlawed it in Saudi Arabia. Pokemon Go. So that was a massive thing that came out. Obviously, it peaked the first year, didn't it? And it's been dropping off, but it's still pretty big. There's still quite a lot of people playing it still. So that's like going to give access to Pokemon. And on released, it was just the original 151, wasn't it? So that might be a factor in it.
Pokemon Go is actually quite funny from my perspective, in that you would think as a person who still plays the games, I would have absolutely enjoyed that sort of phenomenon and caught onto it. Whereas I picked the game up, I played a very small amount, like for a week or so, and then almost immediately dropped it. It just didn't appeal to me.
This is the exercise factor, was it?
It's not the exercise factor.
It's okay, we're in a safe place.
I'm not playing any game that encourages me to walk around.
I don't want to leave my house.
No, it very much wasn't that. Although certainly with what's going on with the ongoing pandemic, I don't think Pokemon Go will be quite as successful now. Because I think a big part of its success was the social aspects.
Yeah.
Of sort of going outside and engaging in sort of nice walks.
I think also for the people that didn't play it, they could go out and go, nerd! Or like, oh, a Pikachu, lol. They don't know what they were saying.
It was interesting with all the people that clearly didn't play Pokemon. That were sort of a younger generation.
You're saying the fakers.
Or an older generation. I mean, I'm happy for other people to share and, you know.
But they weren't there. They weren't at the start. You did it before it was cool.
No, not at all. But I do find it quite funny when people are like, oh, have you got this one? It's like, bitch, please, have I got a Pikachu?
Just slap them and throw their phone as far as you can. You dare disrespect me?
It was interesting, wasn't it, how it really did, again, pick up and became another phenomenon, 20 years on, essentially. And I think it was timed around the 20th anniversary of the original game releases.
Oofed.
I think the 20th anniversary was a couple of years ago, wasn't it? I say couple, more like 3-4 years now. And Pokemon did do a big celebration for the 20th anniversary, from what I'm aware, releasing various like sort of merchandise. And I don't know if Pokemon Go was timed in with that, but it was definitely close.
So Pokemon Go was released on 6th of July 2016, and if we're taking the Pokemon Green sort of release date in Japan, that was 96. So that would have been 20 years on from when it first came out in Japan. So correct.
Yeah, no,
good bit of knowledge.
Yes.
Gold star for you.
Thank you. I'm going to put it on my little board.
On its own lonesome. That's the first gold star I've
It's
ever
not
had.
the first gold star I've got. No, Pokemon Go, obviously it's still going now. I imagine it doesn't quite have the user base that it did when it was as big as it is, but probably enough to keep it going, clearly. But yeah, Pokemon Go was definitely not my sort of thing. I think it's because it was almost like the game's light, right?
Yeah.
It was like stripped back mechanics and things like that. And so I was sort of disengaged with it because I was used to playing the main series games.
Yeah, on a sofa, sort of indoors, warm, with no other people around you, yeah.
I don't like what you're trying to imply here, that I'm like adverse to the outside or something. Yeah. It's very much not the case.
They're trying to every time the light would come in through the curtain, you'd hiss and run into another room.
I'm going to ignore what you're saying. I forget what we're talking about now.
Shall we move on to the anime then? Did you ever watch that?
Yeah, so I spoke about this originally. I don't remember what I saw first, whether it was the cards or whether it was the anime or even the games. Like I say, I was given the games for Christmas, but I think I may have asked for that by that time.
Yeah.
Because of like my cousin and whatnot and seeing things at school.
Because you ruined your cousin's life.
Because I destroyed my cousin's life.
He was doing drugs. You thought maybe I could save him. Maybe if I could just get those Pokemon back.
So I asked for it to Christmas with a plan of giving it to him, and then just selfishly kept it. I definitely did watch the cartoon. And I remember it being on flashback SMTV Live. People remember that? Saturday morning television with Ant and Dec and Cat Deeley. I remember that. SMTV Live was great. Children's television is just surely not the same today.
Don't tell me you're still watching it, right?
No, I don't. I clearly don't still watch children's television. But I feel like...
You sure? I mean, if we were playing Among Us right now, I'd be pretty sus of you.
No.
I don't watch the children's TV.
No, but just thinking about it, I think part of what made children's television so great back in the day as a kid was that, it was a finite resource. It's like you came home from television. You came home from television. You came home from school, and there was like a few hours of television, wasn't there, on one of the main 5 channels, even further back in the past. You had to go back before things like Sky and all that sort of business. So you come home and you'd watch your sort of school, your children's television, and at the weekend you had like a few hours on a Saturday morning with the likes of like SMTV Live. Other than that, and then outside of that, it was quite difficult really to watch children's television.
Yeah.
Unless you sort of went and watched your own video cassettes or something like that, So
what you're saying is back in your day, it was different.
It was different, and I think in some ways that makes our memories of these things fonder.
Yeah.
They often say that absence makes the heart grow fonder and things like that. I think sometimes the scarcity of something can increase its enjoyment.
The scarcity?
Yeah.
I would say the scarcity, but,
Scarce? Is that the same thing?
Whatever. Well, I mean, the only times... Okay, I did watch it when I was a kid, but I don't really remember it because the last time I watched it, I was in uni, and I found out they were on Netflix, I think. And so they did put them just sat and smashed the first, 10 episodes out. I think I got up to Squirtle Squad. That was about where I got, and then, I don't know, I had some exam or something, and I could no longer procrastinate. I knew what I was doing, but yeah. So that's the last time I remember trying to watch it. And let's be honest, he was the worst trainer. Ash was awful, man.
Yeah, I mean, my memories of it, I like you, have rewatched some episodes since on Netflix, but it was a struggle to watch, to be honest. It was background watching, if anything, in the first place, just sort of putting it on for nostalgia. And, it's very much a show aimed at kids, isn't it? And sometimes the sort of nostalgia can get you through it and you enjoy it anyway, but I found it very, very corny and childlike, which is not a problem, but, I am now an adult, so clearly... Well, it's not meant for me anymore.
I don't class myself
by society's reckoning, I am now an adult.
Yeah, I'd rather not be. Can I take it back?
I'd like to hand in my adult card, please.
Oh. That sounds like something else, isn't it?
As a kid, I enjoyed it. It wasn't it wasn't the main point of enjoyment for me for Pokemon. I think it was just sort of reinforcement of the franchise.
Yeah.
You'd watch the cartoon because
it's like what you look for in games these days.
Yeah, exactly.
You want a bit of storyline in the background, don't you?
A big part of any of the most successful franchises it's the universe, right? It's the world that they create that you can sort of get yourself engrossed in. Things like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, all famously have sort of very large outside of main media universes, don't they?
Pokemon have got so many generations out now. We've got Gen 8, but that's Gen of Pokemon, isn't it? There's more games in between those,
Well, one of the things they've managed to consistently do, I think, is just capture that imagination of kids over time. Even to this day, even to our frustration sometimes, you can see that the games are very much still aimed at children first, and older fans second. And, we find that frustrating, as I've just said, because some of the things we'd want from a game now are different to what they're offering. But you can't really refute that the series themselves are still hugely appealing to kids. Yeah. And it hits that mark every time, which is why it's managed to sustain itself for 20 plus years.
Parents always know to just go and buy the Pokemon game, send it along. That's where
It's wholesome as well, isn't it? It's a safe franchise, I think, for parents. They don't have to think hard about, I should be exposing my kid to whatever's in this TV show or in these games, because they know that, Nintendo themselves are a trusted company. Pokemon now is a trusted franchise.
I don't know. Have you seen the state of Jinx? I mean, whew, you saw that.
Controversial, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they did sort of change the design of Jinx a little bit over time, didn't they? From the original games back in the day.
For context, Jinx is I guess she's purple, but she has long blonde hair, huge puffed up lips, and sort of, was it like a corset thing on, or like a dress? It was, I don't know, it was touch and go. it ticked a few boxes, didn't it? But
yeah, I mean, Jinx was one of the designs that originally, I think it was black. It had a black face in the original design in some of the early episodes of the anime, and over time they changed that to purple, I think, to try and avoid any controversy. I think it's an easy win for Game Freak to do that, to try and avoid any issues.
Oh Lord, it did. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Google that in your own time.
You know, it was a controversy of the series. And then I guess you actually alluded to another controversy earlier on, I think, in the episode when you mentioned about sort of evolution.
Yeah.
And how, I think for a while, there was some pushback from sort of religious, what would you call them, groups, I guess?
Religions is what I'd call them. They've got different religions. You may have heard of them. There's a few knocking about. Quite a few followers.
Yeah, well, there was some pushback there, wasn't there? Because Pokemon very much pushed the idea of evolution in its mechanics, in its game mechanics, and in the show. And that sort of opened up children to the idea of evolution, which it shouldn't be controversial, because at the time, it was a well-established scientific theory that was taught in schools to children anyway. Yeah. So I don't know why this was a controversial aspect.
I've just searched religion against Pokemon. Second entry, is Pokemon safe for Christian kids? My child is not safe.
But, you know, that is a thing, isn't it? I mean, we both come from I mean, I was brought up as a Christian myself. I don't know about you actually, whether you were or not, but I come from a background where, you know, it wasn't completely like orthodox, devout sort of Christianity that I followed. So, you know, there was never really this discussion of, oh, you shouldn't be learning about evolution, for example, because that contradicts my interpretation of the Bible or whatever it be.
Yeah.
I never had that from my family. But, you know, some people were brought up in families like that, and I imagine that must have been frustrating for them as a kid.
Yeah.
When Pokemon was so popular, to potentially have their parents or whoever it be telling them, you know, you shouldn't be playing with or engaging with this series, because...
It's interesting, because I guess the initial core concept will have been the life cycle of a caterpillar or whatever. They go from chrysalis to the butterfly. That's not classed as evolution, is it? So they used the word evolution. I don't know if that's like a translation thing between Japanese and English. But
it's a good point, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure about where things have been lost in translation, as it were. I don't know. Very good point. Interesting idea. You're saying that potentially all this controversy came around from a mistranslation.
Yeah, exactly. Because
imagine.
Oh well, it's clearly not done him any harm, has it? $100 billion later.
And I think over the years that definitely went away anyway. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is still a big issue for some.
I mean, we are going to broadcast to the Mormon community, so maybe we should. but no.
No, I think to bring the anime to an end, I think it was fine when I was a kid. I'm aware it still runs now. I haven't seen episodes of it in you know, since I was younger, or when I rewatched the shows on Netflix anyway. It may still be fine for kids, but again, I very much see it as, if it's like much of the other elements of the franchise, I think it's probably aimed at kids, and that's where the enjoyment will be. So I don't think you can really be too upset as a grown adult. That
No, I regularly write in saying, can you please make some more mature material for me, please? I get nothing back. Probably the tone.
I mean, they have sort of ventured into what I feel are more
Triple X films.
Teen audiences.
Oh, okay.
What was that?
What?
What did you say?
No, please continue your point. Yeah.
I was saying that they have sort of ventured into, I think, some more slightly more mature sort of anime stuff. Like on Netflix, they did was it a movie or something like that, which did seem a little like it was based a little more older than what the original television series was, at least. I mean, I'm still talking like teen rather than, you know, it being any sort of like an adult series. Yeah, so I think they have tried it. So what? I guess we've covered Pokemon Go, the anime, the early games.
Should we touch on
the trading cards?
Yes. No, this is something you only found out about me recently, but I've since becoming an adult and having a job and, you know, losing my childhood and slowly eroding into the life of an adult, I decided I'd rekindle some of that by collecting the original 151 Pokemon cards again. So got a little spreadsheet. I know exactly how much I've spent minus the ones that were gifts.
What did it cost you, Jack? Everything.
Well, that's a little bit of cross-universe play there, isn't it? Yeah, it didn't.
It's really hard to do memes over audio, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe if we ever move into video, we could just sort of snip them in.
Maybe if we join the 21st century.
Do memes count as public domain? I guess they must, right?
I don't know. Maybe that's a good point. Actually,
do you think Thanos is going to come after you?
It could. I would be scared of Thanos going after.
Really? I'd just give him a little tickle. I reckon he's a softie on the inside. He's always crying about pushing his daughter off a cliff or whatever. Oh, boo. Shut up, Thanos, Jesus. But back to Pokemon cards.
Was Thanos really evil?
I mean, we can do a whole other pod on that one.
I'm just going to really enrage anyone that's like a deep Marvel fan now. Because my knowledge of Marvel is literally isolated to the movie series.
God.
Everyone will be like, well, in comic book number 147, you'll find that...
So if you've got any complaints about Dan's recent statement, please email in at jackanddanspodcast@gmail.com and let us...
we have an email address now, don't we?
Do.
That we definitely set up security on.
Mm-hmm.
So that people can't go be hacking us.
Dad, it's got a password, right? What do you want? What more do you want? It's got a password. It's gonna be fine.
Good lord. I won't tell people what you originally set as the password, but it's fine. No. We do have an email address now, so yeah, please do contact us with anything that you think would be fun for us to read.
Or perhaps just complaints, if you've got anything angry to say.
If we do get anything interesting, then, we can maybe talk about it on here.
Yeah.
Don't send us anything stupid, please. I just don't want to deal with that.
I'll deal with it, it's fine. Send us some stupid stuff. If it really enrages Dan, we'll get it on the pod. There you go. There's your little...
I don't think that should be the benchmark for what we receive, because this will easily just spiral out.
We'll have a segment. And this is what's annoyed Dan this week.
Yeah, that could go along with what's Jack found in the bin this week. What did you find in the bin this week, Jack? No, we'll come to that later.
Yeah, come on, jumping ahead. Come on, what are you doing?
Yeah. Oh, I've forgotten where we were now. We went off topic so quickly.
Talking about cards.
Oh, yeah, the cards. No, we were, how did we get to Thanos? We came from something, didn't we?
What did it cost me?
Oh, yeah, there we go. We're back. Right, so you completed it though, right?
Yeah, so I've got all the 151 plus a couple of base set, jungle, fossil. I don't know if that means anything to people. Those are like the first 3 sets that came out, what we would have been playing with in school.
So you completed base set, right?
It won't be the original base set, but it will still, like, because they did an initial first release, and then obviously it went well and they reprinted and made more of the same first release, and then they went on to
a bit of technical knowledge here. What you're saying is they're not first edition.
No, they're not first. Well, some of them are first editions.
They are part of an original printing, but not necessarily all first edition, which would be the first print.
I like Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the most expensive one, I assume it was a gift for my birthday, is a Charizard.
Yeah, so that was the card, wasn't it, as a kid? That like, if you were an absolute baller, if you went to the shop and opened a pack of cards and pulled out a shiny Charizard, you as a kid you'd won the lottery, right? You were just running around. Just absolutely
I would
wild.
argue as well that if you found one of those today in first edition, I would argue you've won the lottery as well. So
if you get an original
according
base set
to Iconic Auctions, including the 20% buyer's premium, the total transaction of a sale of a Charizard first edition shiny was $220,000.
Wow.
That's obviously first edition, mint, 1999, shadowless.
Without going too much into this, because we both collect various things, and I do collect some cards myself, not Pokemon cards, but for people out there, I have collected old Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I've had for many years now when I was younger.
Yeah.
There is a market for cards for sure, for collectible cards, and as we've seen, I mean, Pokemon is probably going to be the sort of epitome of that, isn't it? Making the most money out of it, being its the most successful media franchise of all time. But nonetheless, there are a lot of collectible card series out there that you can absolutely make dollar off if you buy the right cards up at the right time. It is a gamble though, isn't it? Because you never know. Like who knew 20 years ago that it would become what it became?
I did. That's why I sold all my cards when I moved to China.
And as with a lot of this stuff, it's aimed at kids. And maybe kids see the value of it. Like, even as a kid, you wanted that stuff, so it had value to you as a child. But you're not in a position to necessarily invest in it for a start, nor are you thinking about that. And it's only really maybe the adult fans of Pokemon that are probably now raking in money all these years later that invested in buying up booster boxes and things like that. It is
the third largest part of their franchise income at $12.13 billion is the card game. So there's a lot of money in it. Still.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you showed me a photo of it, didn't you? Your shiny holo base set Charizard. And it looks in pretty good nick, I mean, that's got to be worth a little bit, Jack. I'm not talking about $220,000, but I imagine someone will pay a little bit of money for that, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking surely the whole set's got to be worth more than the constituent parts, right?
Oh, absolutely. It would be a real shame, wouldn't it, if someone were to take that from your collection and,
Well, it's a good thing I protected it with a password.
If it's anything like your choice of passwords for our email, it'll be gone by next week.
Absolutely not. It was brilliant. We'll share it later.
Yeah, no, the trading cards, again, have remained really popular to this day. And I know they still print cards now. And I did actually buy, I don't know if I told you this before, actually. I bought a few boxed sets 4 years ago now for the 20th anniversary. They did these like special box sets, and I've just stored them in a box in an undisclosed location that definitely is not my house.
Is it password protected?
It's not password protected. I actually just bought a security guard to stand there at all times. Yeah. And he has, rather than a security badge, he just has Pokemon gym badges on his uniform.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, is this man a virgin by any chance?
Whoa! I don't know what you're implying. Anyway, I bought some cards. So that was my little investment into the world of Pokemon cards. You know, maybe another 20 years from now, that might be worth $220,000. I'll be making bank.
Dream. Oh,
that is the dream. But it's pretty cool that you went back and completed that set. I mean, I had an unknown amount of cards at this point because my mother gave them all away to a different cousin, actually. And I never saw them again. I know, travesty, right? The things that we had as kids that we wish we still had, that we've lost over time. I don't know what I had. I don't think I was ever one of those kids lucky enough to pull a Charizard out of a pack. I don't think I ever had one. But
pull a Charizard, okay. Yeah, okay.
So Charizard, that's it's a nice flamey tail you've got there.
Bow chicka chicka bow chicka bow chicka bow.
So last week I saw you were a Charmeleon, and now you've turned up. You make me Charizard.
Oh, right, and with that we'll move on.
Right.
That's a sound bite for the start. Boom. Did you know it was actually a card game, right? So there were like rules.
Yeah, I did.
To the
did you ever
game
play?
And stuff? No, didn't know anything.
I played
just pretty pictures to me.
alone because I had no friends. No, I played. I played on my PC
You're indoors.
because I don't know how I got this. I got a disc that had like a digital version of the game on it. Ooh. And I played this on my PC back in like Windows, God knows what.
Did you steal it off your cousin by any chance?
I didn't steal it off my cousin. Yes, my cousin used to have the card game I did, and it went missing, and then I got it. And,
he went to prison because his life went down the tracks, and then all of his stuff was taken.
So I played this game on the PC. So I knew the rules as a kid somewhat. I mean, it essentially consisted of they all had some health points, didn't they? And they had some attacks that they could use that knocked off health points. And you had these energy cards that you had to attach to use the health points. It essentially amounted.
Oh, is that what they were for?
Yeah.
That
were what those shit cards that you got in every pack. You're like, fucking energy.
Literally use them as toilet paper.
Yeah. I reckon there's like a
still do because I had that many.
There is like a landfill site somewhere just filled with Pokemon energy cards. I reckon you can power like the UK like fuel economy by just burning energy cards from
on fire energies
1998 to 2001.
Why don't you just plug the electric energies in? There you go. An untapped resource.
It's got the meta answer. No. The trading cards were probably, collectively, everything made Pokemon what it is today, but they were a huge part of it, weren't they? You just said that they remain to this day a huge moneymaker for them. I mean, actually, like, discussing, or going on slightly to a topic we'll discuss later about microtransactions in games in another episode and things like that. Trading cards are like the OG microtransaction, right?
Yeah, basically.
They were like the original loot box, right?
Were you guaranteed a shiny in a pack? Or?
No, not at all. And to come back to the previous point, a lot of the cards were just filler anyway, like energy cards.
Yeah.
I mean, you were rolling the dice every time you
must have had 100 million Nidorans.
Exactly. You were rolling the dice every time you opened one of those packs, right, as a kid, hoping that the £2 whatever you'd spent of your pocket money was worth it for bragging rights on the playground.
Yeah. You didn't even you'd opened them before you even got out of the store, and you knew whether it was going to be a good week or a bad week.
Exactly. I mean, talking about inflation of prices, there, I think £2.50 would probably buy you like one card now. I don't know what the packs of cards sell for now, but
well, the right card, yeah.
We've spent a little bit more than that on some of them. Yeah, I'm not going to ask you how much you spent on your collection. No, but I as I just said, I unfortunately lost my cards to another member of my family, and I don't know what they stole them
back when he got out of prison.
Yeah, I don't know what they ever did with them, but I'm not getting them back now, clearly. But you, I think, held on to a fair few of your originals, didn't you?
So I remember very distinctly that. So you know about me, I moved to China when I was 11, and so a lot of stuff gets culled. There was a lot of car boot sales around that time, and I had all of my Pokemon cards in a small sort of wash bag, I guess. It wasn't small, it was quite a big one, actually.
To protect it from the milk.
Yeah, to protect it from the milk. Yeah. Shut up. Sorry, you could hear the emotion still in my... yeah. Clearly I've discovered something I need to talk about. But there was... so I remember going through them and taking all my shinies out, all the proper ones anyway, thinking, like, I can keep 6 or 7. I think I had 6 or 7 of them left. And, like, then literally... Most were talking, like, 1,000 maybe. Just went for a £5. Never saw them again. Most of them, like 900 of those will be energy cards, I imagine. Yeah, so I've still got... So the one in my collection is my original Venusaur from way back. There was the Machamp that everyone had, the shiny Machamp first edition.
Didn't you get that in a little set, like a box? Because you could buy like the decks.
It was a guarantee.
Where it was a
guaranteed
guaranteed,
one, so
yeah.
It was a promo card, so anyone who has that, I'm afraid it's not as rare as it may think. I also had Mewtwo. That was pretty cool, but I looked at it again afterwards, and it's a little bit scratched.
Seen better days.
Clearly, yeah. God.
That's a young Jack just walking around like he owns the world, Mewtwo in hand, covered in like crap, whatever you've eaten that day, and
exactly. Try and get in the pub with it.
Well, that's what you do, right? When you turn 18, you don't get your driver's license. You just roll up with your base set Charizard, and they're just like, whoa,
Boom.
Come in, mate.
Yeah.
Sorry,
this guy's a big deal. Let him in. So some of them are very personal to me. A lot of them are.
For a lot of people, they're fond memories, aren't they? Their childhood, still to this day. I think a lot of people probably still have their cards. I mean, I'm just thinking from like personal experience of like speaking to my friends, although maybe we're a bit of a biased group, but speaking to people I know, I think a lot of them still have their old cards because, you know, they were treasured memories.
So if you want to get rid of them,
we accept all donations of base set Pokemon cards.
Exactly. Contact us at jackanddanspodcast@gmail.com or go on Instagram, Jack and Dan's Podcast. We're on Twitter as well, aren't we, Dan?
We are. I'd like to point out as well that we took a long time to come up with that name, didn't we? I mean, we spent
a lot of man hours, a lot of focus groups.
There was a hell of a lot of minutes spent thinking of that name.
God,
so.
Yeah, and we paid a lot of money to that survey team.
Yeah, and we had to get the trademark. That was tough.
That was. You wouldn't believe how many Jack and Dan's podcasts there are already out there.
Yeah, and we had to spend a lot of money to get that. But we are here now. Name solidified.
We're hoping to make it back on the sale of Pokemon cards that people bring in.
Shh, don't tell them.
So if you'd like to fund our podcast for another episode where we'll talk about something other than Pokemon, help us out.
I mean, we have at this point spent a long time speaking about Pokemon, really, and people who didn't like Pokemon have almost definitely tuned out after the first 4 minutes.
Fuck is this?
Like, fucking hell, I tuned into that last one. I didn't actually think they were going to talk about Pokemon for an hour, but...
I don't even know what Pokemon is. So, shall we put a description of Pokemon at the end for all those people that stuck
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know
about
what Pokemon is, it's actually is it contraction? I don't know whatever the technical word is for two words pushed together. Pocket monsters, yeah.
Yes, or pocket monsteru, I think.
But they often do that in Japanese culture, don't they? They still use English words for different phrases and things, even in their own language, which I think is quite interesting.
But the general premise is that you get given a starter.
Jack, this is a lost cause, mate. We're so far in. We don't need to describe Pokemon at this point.
We can put it in.
If you don't know what Pokemon is, you've almost definitely turned this off. We're moving on to the games.
Maybe they're all sat here hoping maybe the introductory thing will come later. Shut up, Dan. That's what they're screaming on the podcast.
We're moving on to the games, Jack, and this is where we
do everything you want to do.
This is where you can vent all of your frustrations with your recent playthrough of Pokemon's first venture into the console world, which is Sword and Shield. I believe at this point the best-selling Switch game, right? Am I wrong?
Let me fact check you there.
We can fact check. Don't want the best-selling Switch game that isn't Pokemon coming after me.
Yeah, exactly. Or Thanos.
I could take him.
Orkies. It's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Oh, but they basically give that away with Switch, don't they?
Copies sold as 26.7. Yeah, okay, I guess it depends. The first Pokemon entry is Pokemon Sword and Shield at 5.
Oh, wow. No, I'm just wrong. In fairness, Animal Crossing, I was thinking okay, it's the most recent one of them, but no, Animal Crossing, March 20th of this year is the second best selling at 22 million. Okay, I mean, Pokemon is top 5, isn't it? It is number 5th according to Wikipedia, but...
Number 5th.
Number 5th. It's number 5th in the sales list of games that sell.
Yeah, so I guess the underlying question to this is whether the old games are better than the new games.
That is a bit of a hard question to answer, though, isn't it?
But we're going to have a crack, Dan.
Yeah, we can have a crack. I think the games are good. I mean, clearly they're good games. They've sold a lot. If you were a child in 2020, between probably the ages of maybe like 4 at a minimum, you could just about play it.
Yeah.
To like 10, 11, 12. I'm sure you love that game, and it hits all the marks of what a Pokemon game should. I think for us, we still get that sort of nostalgia kick to playing it, and we sort of get to play with the original Pokemon that are obviously still part of that game, as well as some new ones that maybe take our fancy. And it still hits all the same points, doesn't it? Like, you can still battle and have fun and collect. I think our frustrations, stem mostly from maybe the lack of innovation we feel in the series over the years. Would you not say?
Yeah, okay. So I mean, the things that I like about the new one, right, is the sort of quality of life improvements. So before, when you played the earlier games, basically, if you wanted to get your new Pokemon out, you'd have to go back to the computer. Remember that? But now
release.
It comes with release them all. Release all your cousins' Pokemon.
I think my cousin will be thrilled to play this one.
Yeah, but things like sort of when you catch Pokemon, all the XP goes to the rest of the team, things like that. In fact, when you kill a Pokemon, knockout.
You can't say.
What's
kill.
the appropriate term? I know. Sorry. When you
Pokemon.
pummel a Pokemon to death.
Well, they got rid of stuff. Do you remember the Safari Park when you used to go in and like throw rocks?
Yeah.
And then they got rid of that, didn't they?
That's how they do the Pokemon's like migration in Soul Silver and stuff, isn't it? It's basically you go back to that and you pummel your own.
That was
Pokemon.
very much a thing. And they got rid of the gambling arena. Remember there used to be the what was it called? Gaming Corner. There we go. It used to be the gaming corner in the originals, and I think even like Gold and Silver. They got rid of that as well, because obviously you can't encourage kids to gamble. At least not in a really obtuse and in-your-face form. Instead, we'll just sort of put trading card packs in shops that they can buy instead. No. But anyway, got rid of Gaming Corner from the games, didn't they? I agree with you. I think the quality of life changes, but I think that just comes with it being a modern game. I think in general, gamers these days just don't put up with as much shit as they used to. You
say that.
Yeah.
But like you could have advertised from the start what they would do with like, okay, so we're not going to release all the Pokemon. So so basically you're going to charge us to get our Pokemon back. It's basically what you're going to do this generation.
Yeah. You're jumping ahead here on practices that we're not quite fans of. My point was going to be that I think there's a lot of things that compete for people's time nowadays. So I think game mechanics have to be built around minimizing sort of time lost for people, otherwise they just won't engage. Yeah. Now, to come back to the point you just made, they've taken an interesting approach, haven't they, with the downloadable content for this game. So a big thing about Pokemon was when the games come out, and I think it's one of the factors that keep long-term fans engaged with the series, is that you can technically, for the longest time, you could sort of pull through your Pokemon from all of the previous games to the latest version. I think there was like a cutoff. I think Gen 3, like Ruby and Sapphire rather, at one point. But then they re-released the original games like a virtual console sort of thing. So you could play those and pull them through to the latest games now. So at current timing, you can play any Pokemon game in some form, whether it be on a virtual console or the original cartridge, and move your Pokemon through to the most recent game. And that's quite neat, right? It means that you could keep your old Pokemon from all those years ago, and they'd sort of travel with you through your new adventures. Blah, blah, blah. Fun, right? But then this new game came out, and Dexit happened, which is the nice turn of phrase for Pokemon suddenly deciding that they didn't have, I assume the argument was that they didn't have the sort of time or manpower to do so, to put in the game assets for every single Pokemon. So instead, they picked a subset to make available in the game. I don't know how many this was. It was in the hundreds, right? I think it was like 500 or something, I think, of the original 800 or whatever you said.
Yeah, it's like maybe half or whatever.
Yeah, maybe half. Maybe even more than half. You can Google it yourself if you're that fussed about knowing exactly. But this created a bit of a rift, didn't it, in long-term fans. To a new fan of the series, that means nothing to you, right? It doesn't matter. Because you've not got an attachment to these old games, you don't care. Which again stands to point more to my evidence about Pokemon really catering more for the current generation of young kids, and maybe that's the right thing to do for them because it's meant they've made so much money as they have and have made popular. But anyway, it meant though that if one of your favourites wasn't in the game, that was it, right? Wasn't in the game. What were you going to do? Cry about it? Write a letter of discontent to Mr. Nintendo?
Angrily buy the game.
Or instead, would you do what they expect you to do, which is buy the game anyway and just be a little bit sad about it?
And then pay more money for the upgrade
Yeah.
to get your Pokemon back that you wanted.
So lo and behold, they then announce DLC, downloadable content for the game, which is a common practice now, which is, to release additional content digitally after the game release for you to pay extra money and you get some more stuff if you've enjoyed the main game. And so this happened for Pokemon, first time ever as well. They've done this for Pokemon. And with this came an extra, I think in each DLC it's about an extra 110, isn't it, or something they've released of the missing Mons back into the game. Yeah. And there you're sort of like, well, where do we stand on this? I mean, you could argue, okay, maybe now because they've had the time to do this, to create the assets for the missing Pokemon, to put them back in the game, so we should pay extra for that time and development cost. But then you feel like it should have been in the game anyway because you used to get that, and the game already costs more than its base Sword and Shield with no DLC, cost more to purchase for Switch than the previous games cost to purchase for their respective consoles.
Yeah.
So you already felt like you were getting less for more money. It was a bit of a sour taste, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it could have been forgiven if the storyline was in any way good. Or but... one of the things you'll remember from the early things, right? HMs, do you remember these? So you taught your Pokemon a HM move, and then you were furious because you couldn't overwrite it with one of the good moves when it came to it, because these were permanent moves, and so the reason they're permanent is so you could use them on sort of in-world objects, and this is one of the features they've basically removed from the games. It's sort of the overworld style puzzles. So do you remember Gen 2, there was the ice patches, and there was only certain ways to get through by sliding along the ice. That was really cool. And then strength, you could move rocks and stuff. So the general premise was they had to be permanent, otherwise you'd end up in a cave, and you've overwritten a move, and you then can't get out of that cave, which in my opinion, if you've done that, you're an idiot, and you deserve to stay in that cave.
I mean, everyone used to have, what did he used to call them, HM slaves?
HM slave,
essentially.
Yeah.
Which would be a Pokemon that you kept in your party just to know, cut, dig, fly, flash, whatever it be.
Because they're only four of the HM moves in one Pokemon, yeah. Zigzagoon was the one I had in the Gen 3.
Yeah.
Because that boy could pick up rare candies as you walked along as well. Oh, multifaceted.
So again, though, that's a positive change to the game series, right? It's just removing this unnecessary barrier.
I don't know. No, but this is the point, though. It's they've also removed the cool feature from the overworld, and ergo you just walk from A to B.
Well, it's maybe it's a bit heavy-handed then. It's not that people necessarily wanted those mechanics gone from the game. They just didn't want it getting in the way of what is a core mechanic of the game, which is tailoring your party to personal Pokemon that you want. Needing certain HMs sort of contradicted that, because it meant you had to have certain Pokemon in your team to be able to use those moves that you necessarily ordinarily wouldn't want. So yeah, I mean, a middle ground there would have been to do what I actually did in previous games anyway, which is to just not require the HM moves to be known by Pokemon and to sort of have a skill or a move to use instead, but still retain those mechanics in the game for interesting dungeons and things like that.
Yeah, because it added an element of going back through the game to find all the things you couldn't have done on the first walkthrough, which added some replayability to it, which is distinctly lacking in this one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You wonder, is it because it's their first foray into full sort of 3D console style gameplay / game engines, whatever it be, that maybe they didn't have the time?
I don't know. My hunch is that they went all in on the Wild Zone. I think that's what they thought was going to be the big sort of thing to keep everyone coming back. And so for those who haven't played it, it's basically they've introduced this thing called the Wild Zone in Sword, which is where you just wander around a big open sort of sandbox area, which is, as you know, is not like the sort of set camera angle routes that you usually follow in the storyline. And different Pokemon appear, and they're all of a certain level anyway, so they're not scaled to you. So you can, when you first come across it, I think you're level 10, and they deliberately put an Onyx in the way, and that Onyx is level 40. You scream and you run away, or it knocks you out. And so that's the general premise of it, is this interactive world you go around playing. But it was
it ended up being
sparse,
sort of I mean, to call it as wide as an ocean isn't even that apt. It wasn't even that big, but it was as wide as an ocean, as deep as a puddle, right?
Yeah.
It was very samey. There wasn't much to it once you'd sort of been through it. I mean, the main thing was the diversity of Pokemon that you could catch there, but I don't know, it wasn't enough. But I mean, part of it is, maybe what we want out of a Pokemon game doesn't align with
what sells
well, which is clearly... Or rather, I'm not saying what we want wouldn't sell well, but I think it clearly would require more investment, what we want. And, they are a company ultimately that wants to make money, I guess. And so I don't want to say they do the bare minimum, but to some extent, you want to spend as little money as possible to make as much money as possible, outside of sort of creative influence and wanting to do what you want to do as a developer.
I mean, I don't want to have a go at it because, like, I think it's a cool feature. I think that it was like Pokemon have wanted it. It's like been needing it for a while, but I think if you look at the newer iterations, certainly Crown Tundra and Isle of Armor, they've done it better. It was all very sort of single layered, wasn't it? The first one. Then this one just got like caves and like rivers and stuff you can go around, and sort of it's more interactive. The map, it's more depth. And I guess again we go back to they've released more Pokemon, which is why you want to explore it basically. But
the game itself though is so much more linear than the original series, and I know there's an element of nostalgia maybe biasing it here, and people think that the original games were less linear than they were. Because if you go back and I have played through the original games in recent years for sort of nostalgia purposes and whatnot, having a bit of fun, and the games themselves it's not as though they're not linear. There's just more to do in any sort of given area. Like the caves themselves, sort of the puzzle elements of them, it makes it feel less linear. It's sort of broken down. Because, I mean, ultimately you're still going from gym to gym, like city to city, right? And there are a finite number of routes you can take to do that. But even so, it doesn't feel as in your face as the new games do, as far as hand-holding and taking you down a specific path and route is involved.
And is that just because we are now 20 years older and better at reading how games work?
I have to think there is an element of that, right? In that it's become obvious to it, hasn't it? Like the tropes of gaming.
Yeah. But this is where, so now the sort of Pokemon community in itself has made new rules of playing Pokemon, not established by the Pokemon the company. So I'm talking about, what's it called? A Nuzlocke playthrough now. Yeah. I've always wanted to do one of these. The general rule is if your Pokemon faints, it's dead, it's gone.
They don't die, Jack. They don't die.
In Nuzlocke they do. This is 18 plus Pokemons we're talking about now.
Pokemon Gone Wild.
Yeah. Not really. Okay.
No.
That's probably a different movie.
No, that's a different one. We really should stop mentioning Pokemon in this weird sexualized way.
No.
But Nuzlocke is more of it's a challenge mode, right? Essentially, an unofficial challenge mode, wherein, like you say, if they faint, they're supposed to be like permadeath, as it were, and you put them in the PC and it'll release them and never use them again. And some people do randomized modes, so that's where people have got, I guess, what they call like ROM versions of the game. So they essentially emulate the game through a PC, and this allows people to modify the game, which means that they can randomize where Pokemon spawn and what you get given at the beginning and things like that. Sort of just a bit more interesting, right? If you never know what's quite going to happen on a run through.
Yeah. And so there's another one I read about. So we're talking Gen 1 here. You get through to the end. So what's it called? Victory Road, just before the Elite Four, right? And you get a Magikarp level, whatever you catch it at, and you go in and you release all of your other Pokemon. And so you have to get out of the you have to get out of Victory Road and beat the Elite Four with just that Magikarp you've started with. And so it all comes down to like finding this. What is it? There's like a Graveler or something, isn't there, in there that self-destruct, and you have to roll the dice that Graveler is going to self-destruct and miss, and that levels up your Magikarp so it evolves. So you can then train it again. It sounded mental, but this is actually something that someone's done online.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's some pretty cool ways you can play through these games, and people have had a long time to sort of develop these different mods, haven't they, for playing through.
Yeah, well, the other one is Twitch Plays Pokemon. Have you heard of that one?
Ah, the Twitch Plays Pokemon. So this is when I think I was at university at the time.
Yeah,
I remember that becoming a whole thing. Twitch, of course, being the popular streaming platform for all sorts of things, but largely video game people who play video games. And they did this sort of quite innovative thing at the time, which was they allowed people who were... So Twitch has a chat that for people who are watching the stream to chat in, and Twitch Plays Pokemon could essentially interpret different chat commands to make the game character move. I.e., you could play Pokemon, Twitch Plays Pokemon, right? And so people essentially were just spamming all sorts of commands, and over a number of days were trying to gradually work their way through the game. And there's all sorts of things happen throughout this playthrough that have become memes and sort of quite famous moments amongst Twitch Plays Pokemon history. And they introduced different modes. I don't know how much you're aware of this, Jack, of things like democracy and anarchy.
Oh yeah.
To try and there's the famous. I remember reading a whole thing about it afterwards. It's quite interesting. It's like a whole famous ledge. There's a particular ledge and a route which basically requires, I think it was like 7 or 8 consecutive right movements without a single down movement to get past. Otherwise you have to like go back to the start of the route and go again. And I think they were stuck there for like over a day or something to that extent. And this was like meant that they had to develop a whole new mode to allow people to like vote on movements to get past it. I mean, it's well worth a good read through. And I imagine
it's a good social study, isn't it, on the behaviour of people on the internet, as we all know.
And I think there are some good, without name dropping anyone in particular, I think there are some good sort of coverage videos for sort of the best moments of this. But it was quite interesting, and anyone who has played the original games would probably find 10 minutes of enjoyment from reading up on that if you haven't already. So yeah, the original games I think have always captured that, like the Pokemon fan base's attention, haven't they? They're very well received still to this day.
Yeah.
Although I think it would be hard now to play through those games as a young Pokemon fan now without that nostalgia, because they very much do show their age, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But that's why they made things like Let's Go, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which were technically remakes, weren't they? Of
which is a good combination of the old and the new.
Yeah.
But it just didn't quite go far enough for me. That was definitely pandering to kids.
It was this weird hybrid though, wasn't it, of Pokemon Go?
Yeah.
And again, for me, it wasn't enough like the main games to capture my attention enough to play it. So I gave that one a miss as well. But I mean, I have played it, just don't own it. But yeah,
here we go. Well then, okay, I guess like what the question we got was old versus new, eh? So summary, what do you reckon?
I mean, for now, I still play the games. I got enough enjoyment out of Sword and Shield to continue playing that series, at least when they just sort of drop new stuff. I don't think there's enough there to keep me playing all the time, but then I don't look to Pokemon for that to be the only game you play. I think if you did, you're going to be sorely disappointed, even as the most avid fan, if that's like the only thing you play. Unless of course you're like a competitive player.
We haven't touched on VGC.
I know, like competitive community, right? Of which there is a large competitive scene for both the TGC and the VGC. It's the collectible.
I think it's really like a nuanced. It's a really nuanced sort of esport, I guess. But there's so much more depth to it than a couple of other things. Like we say, there's 800 and something Pokemon. Some of them will be ruled out for a season, so you have to play others. Everyone's got individual stats. Then there's IV breeding that comes into it. So that's.
I mean, to say a casual playthrough of Pokemon versus competitive Pokemon is a different game would be actually quite fair to some extent.
Yeah.
Like what you focus on is very different, and you can get enjoyment from each of those depending on who you are. Yeah, I mean, I've never done any competitive Pokemon gaming or card playing.
Yeah.
The furthest I've ventured, of course, is just playing some online battles on the latest games, which is a mixed bag.
Comparing the two versions, right? It's got to be like playing the normal playthrough is like playing with one of those little toys that you get. You used to get in birthday parties for the little ball trying to get through a maze. That's basically what you're doing in Pokemon, the normal game. And then Pokemon Online, playing versus other people, is like playing poker and chess at the same time. It's so much harder. When I first got into it and played it a little bit with my team that I thought was really good, and you find out actually no, there's Pokemon out there that just bend my team over and do naughty things to it. There was certainly a moment, because it was me and you that played each other at the start, wasn't it? You just you had all your Pokemon that you'd sort of been training up for a while, and I'd have this 6 level 100 I'd spent about a week putting together, like really planning, trying to think it through, like I've got all my type advantages, blah blah, and basically just bent me over with like a Vaporeon or something. Just I just sulked for a day, I think, and I had to come back and have another go.
I mean, there is
demoralizing, and then you just did it again 6 more times. And it's just, and I can. The only comparison is probably your cousin. I can only feel like what your cousin felt.
I mean, I can't say I didn't enjoy
you'd come along and just deleted all of my Pokemon. And now I understand why he turned to drugs and inevitably went to prison.
My cousin is doing just fine, by the way. He has not turned to drugs or gone to prison. But I can't say I didn't enjoy hammering you into the ground 8 times in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, it is ultimately, like you described, it is very much, it's a good strategy game at that level. There is a large element of skill to it for sure. I wouldn't have anyone say otherwise. And I think that's the case with most games when you get to a high level. I think you'd be hard pushed to find a game that has a decent competitive scene. that doesn't require skill at the highest level, and a lot of it. And Pokemon is the same as that. It's definitely not any different.
Yeah, but I mean, it's you play Destiny or you play Overwatch, like you'll go into a league of people roughly your talent level. Let's not touch on the SR system of Overwatch. I know your passionate feelings about that.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about later. But
dog shit. But anyway.
I'm talking like if you go into Pokemon and you're not prepared and you haven't thought about it properly, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not. I imagine. I mean, anyone can jump into online, can't they? So I imagine there've been a fair few kids out there that have just jumped into online and probably never gone back into it.
Oh yeah, I played a couple of those in like casual plays.
I mean, it still has a ladder though, doesn't it? So over time, you should adjust to the level where you should be at.
I guess so. Oh, then I reckon that's a good old chat, good lengthy discussion about Pokemon so far. We can always come back to it. I don't think it's going anywhere.
No, it's around to
31 years. It's done all right.
It's stood the test of time, hasn't it?
If there's anything that you at home thought we missed out talking about, let us know. We got social media. Instagram is Jack and Dan's Podcast. jackanddanpodcast@gmail.com, and what's the Twitter one, Dan?
Something about that in it, like Jack and Dan's Podcast.
Yeah,
isn't it?
if you put Jack and Dan's Podcast in, you're going to find us.
Yeah, it probably won't, because I couldn't earlier when I attempted to find us. So we'll fix that though. So hopefully by the time you're looking, it will be there.
And to be honest, it'd just be nice to hear from my mum again. As the only listener to this podcast.
Yeah, I asked my mum, but she said she was too busy. So
it was weird. She said she'd listen to me. So whatever.
We're editing that out. You're not making a your mum joke in this podcast.
Should we talk about the next discussion we're going to have, Dan?
Yes. The next one is going to be on monetization.
Oof, yes.
We spoke a little bit about loot boxes earlier. As you can probably tell, we're not too keen on the idea of those. I don't feel they have a huge place in many games. Place at all, in fact, in many games. We'll definitely talk about different monetization techniques in the gaming industry, a little bit about how it's changed over time, with the likes of things like downloadable content, mobile gaming, hugely popular now for many people, everyone having a smartphone on them pretty much all the time, and our views in general.
All right, so should we do our customary sign-off? Should I count you down?
No. Bye.
Bye.